back here to X's and Bros on the Michigan Sports Network. Danny Galen, Ryan Elke, Anthony Bellino, all joining you. Join us now, covering the Detroit Lions. He's got the beat for MLive. His name is Benjamin Raven. Find him on Twitter at Benjamin S. Raven. Welcome back to the program. Studio audience, they love you. How are you? How's life? How are things, my friend?
I'm doing all right. I'm adjusting to home life again. It's the weird first 10 days of the off season where you're still busy, but you've got nowhere to go. But like we just said, I don't have much to complain about this time of year for sure.
You know what? And it's odd, right? Because, this time of year, we're typically, okay, what do we do? What about this coaching staff? What about the draft? And then we got the big news earlier this week that Ben Johnson informed teams that he was actually going to return to the Detroit Lions. When you saw that news, what did that say to you about what this team actually believes is taking place in Ford Field?
I do believe it means a lot for the franchise, and it does speak to the franchise health that instead of kind of maybe pursuing one of these job processes, hiring processes to the end, that he kind of forgoed that opportunity to run it back in Detroit another year. Now, I mean, maybe he saw a lane where he wasn't going to get one of those jobs. I mean, that's the negative side of things. But I mean, at the end of the day, it says just complete culture shift. I mean, it's a complete culture shift around these parts. Free agents are telling them they want to be here. Coaches are coming back when they're some of the most hotly chased names on the coaching carousel right now. So I mean, it's a healthy franchise. It really is right now. It's a healthy franchise. Positive vibes through and through. I mean, that's just it was surprised at just how it went down. I kind of expected him to be back just as a first-year play caller, first-year offensive coordinator, but just like surprised at how it went down. That's a big-time get, and he's gambling on himself and the Lions to take him to that next level.
Boy, I love that. And will that resonate at all with teams that might be interested in interviewing defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn, who obviously took a lot of flack through that first 7 weeks of the season, but with the 8-2 turnaround, the final 10, people started to figure out, hey, they made a change in the coaching staff they felt was necessary. The defense was markedly improved over the remaining 10 weeks of the season. The pass rush was there, secondary was better, linebackers running sideline to sideline. Do you think that Ben Johnson's decision to come back and try to see this thing through, do you think that at all has an effect on Aaron Glenn in what might happen with teams that want to interview him and a decision that he might have upcoming?
It's a good question because I do believe that Aaron Glenn loves where he's at right now and loves being there with Dan Campbell, his like right-hand man for sure. But I do think that, I know he said he wants to be the best defensive coordinator, the best coordinator in Detroit Lions franchise history. And he wouldn't be that if he left right now. And that's not a knock on him, but I think he'll see these positions out. There's only 32 of these jobs, and it is the top of the profession. So it's just that's why I bring up the point. I wonder if Ben Johnson was like, all right, I'm not going to get one of these. I'm going to shift my focus fully back to the Lions as early as possible. But I do think these guys should see this process to the end. You can learn a lot from the process, and like I said, there's only 32 of these, and it's quite the pay bump when you get one of those jobs. So. But no, it's the thing for Aaron Glenn is what he's gotten out of his young defenders. The best pass rushing rookie class of all time. The new franchise, the new league record holder for a rookie class with the most sacks in the season. It's a league worst pass defense, but it's like last year. You can see the improvement, you can see the growth, and you can see the young nucleus kind of growing and taking those all important steps forward under his leadership. After he took on more leadership in the secondary too, so he's an interesting candidate for teams too.
It's still a lot to play out here, but it does leave me just like a sliver of hope that everybody's kind of all bought in. And for what it's worth, if they want to take my $12 a season and they want to send that to these coaches to bump their pay, by all means, they just take it. Just keep winning games. That's all I care about. I'll work for free. All right. So now the meat and the potatoes of this, right? Because last week we talked about, our friend Jeff Risden wrote an article about 5 guys he didn't see as unrestricted free agents that would be returning to Detroit. This week we took a look at the full list of the 18 UFAs that the Lions might look to retain this year. Yesterday we went kind of through the list of maybe the top 5 that we would like. So that's why I want to start with you, Ben, who are the top 5 guys right now that are unrestricted free agents on this Lions team that you can't live without? Who are the 5 that you absolutely want back, no question?
John Kaminsky, Jamal Williams, Deshaun Elliott, Alex Anzalone, and DJ Chark. Those are the 5 primary targets in my mind for the team. Elliott might surprise some people, but I think that run defense really took a hit every time he wasn't in the lineup. I think he was a lot better than he got credit for. And they might need some help at safety depending on when Tracy Walker's back. It's still a young room, but those are the 5 guys for me. It'll be interesting on Chark and Williams, just on outside suitors, just what we've seen the wide receiver market in recent years. And Jamal just had a pretty special season, but I do think those 5 guys, those are the 5.
Now, when you mentioned Alex Anzalone there, the linebacker in year 1 here with the franchise, we knew that he and Dan Campbell had a good connection, but there wasn't anything drastic about his game that really stood out, and he probably took a lot of criticism, which, rightfully so. 2021 was a little bit of a mess. This year, the guy was just a tackling machine. What did you see in the difference in his play that made for an improved 2022 year?
I think the scheme tweak really benefited him. He didn't. Nobody really came out and bashed it, but he did say that it was a transition. Kind of, he was on his toes and waiting, read and react. And this year it was go, go, go. And I think that really just kind of meshed with his style of play. And he finally had a clean bill of health. I think he played all 17 games. He played 97, 98% of the defensive snaps. So that always helps too, because he'd always battled some injuries there throughout his career. So that always helps. But the thing about him, the thing why I think he's a guy that you have to have back, even if they upgrade the linebacker room, even if he starts in more of a rotation somehow, I just think he is so important to that defensive DNA, and not just performance wise, but he is the vocal leader on that young defense. He is the leader on that defense, and I just think he's in the top 5 or 10 important locker room presences, just even taking out performance out of there, just on this team. And I think as you're building this foundation, and obviously you want talent upgrades at positions like that, but he is still very integral to this thing moving forward, I think. He's the captain of the ship on that defense. He deserves a lot of credit for his improved play and just kind of for embracing his role here.
So we touched on 2 absolute tackling machines in Deshaun Elliott, who had a great run grade from Pro Football Focus, or a great tackling grade, I should say, and Alex Anzalone, who went for over 100. You had mentioned another guy on that defensive side, John Kaminsky, and this was a guy who saw very, very limited opportunities in his time in Atlanta. He asked for a release. The Detroit Lions claim him off a waiver. Whatever the Lions saw, whoever saw him in their pro scouting department said, hey, this is, 7 other teams put in waiver claims as well. And so, they allow him to kind of compete for a role here. And then all of a sudden, this guy's out there running around with 2 sock and boppers on his hands. He's oven mitts. He's gloved up. He can't even use them. And he just excels and flourishes, and the folks that may not have even known that he signed, who is John Kaminsky? Was that 79 out there? What is he doing? And he turned out to be, we talk about value. That's John Kaminsky right there.
Yeah, and he's the type of glue player that just is fit for this culture, fit for this coaching staff, fit for this roster. He is the definition of the pick up your lunch pail and go to work type guy. Doesn't want to talk about himself. The one thing he did talk about after the season was just how expressing, full on expressing. This was before the Instagram post where he's telling Lions fans to ask the team to bring back the Kamish. He told us in the locker room that I want to be here. I want to help Mac. I want to help Hutch. I want to help James Houston. I want to help Julian O'Clair. I want to kind of be the mentor for those guys. That's great and all, but the guy was a low key pressure creating machine at times this year. He had one game, I think, where he had 9 pressures. Ended the season with just a lights out game against the Packers in Green Bay. Had some big time plays in that. And like you said, I can't wait to see what the guy can do without 2 oven mitts on his hands. When he can use his full hands, because he was an all important glue piece, and it would be wise to bring him back, I think, to that kind of growing defensive line room.
Boy, and you know what? When he played, they were fantastic, right? When he was in the lineup, right? They were a winning football team. He makes a difference, and it's really interesting to see when you had Hutch and you had Kaminsky, and you had James Houston and even Josh Pascal, very, very limited. But that idea of the Lions featuring a NASCAR type of package where they're going to throw out a ton of speed in one inside technique guy and just let it fly. Like I love that. I love the fact that we have options, and it's not just like let's just stick 4 guys there and then pray to God somebody creates a pressure. You also mentioned Jamal Williams. We all know his story. DJ Chark is very, very interesting because out of the 9 starters that are UFAs here in 2023, Chark might be the only one who has a guaranteed starting role if he comes back. Do you think that money is going to be crazy for him? Do you think that, Detroit seemed to be a really good fit for him, that this might be a place where he can see himself being a part of, as we keep alluding to, something special with Amon-Ra St. Brown, the development of Jamison Williams? You have Josh Reynolds, you have Khalif Raymond. Is this a group that he wants to continue to work with?
I did get that feeling, and I really did think he kind of fit in well there. And when he was healthy and on the field, I mean, he really provided that downfield threat that they needed. I mean, if you can get him back another short-term deal, another big one-year deal while Jameson Williams continues to develop, then I think that's a home run. But like you alluded to, I mean, the wide receiver market, I mean, it's spiked in recent years. And a 6'4", 200-pound guy that can stretch the field and add some yak, I mean, you can easily envision a couple multi-year deals. I mean, the first team that comes to mind is a team like the Bears with all that cap space and the lack of receivers. I mean, it's really easy to see a team throwing 2 years, 3 years, and a little too happy at the price tag for the Lions at receiver, but I think they'd like him back. I honestly think he'd like to come back, but it's all going to be about what they can offer him and what they can compete with, because they're not going to go neck and neck matching offers, I feel like, on him with what they have at receiver. But I do think he's important enough that they would like to have him back on a similar deal. I think he got 1 year, $10 million, almost nearly all guaranteed. That's not too bad. He had another injury shortened season, so yeah, we'll see. That's going to be an interesting one to track. I could see that going a couple of different ways.
Yeah, I think that, and most Lions fans, you just kind of prepare for another team to throw out an offer that's really good, and then you just kind of roll from there. But you feel comfortable in the event that you were to lose them. So I got the 5 guys that you have to have. Who are 5 guys that you want to have? These are guys that, that if the money works out, you think that they're going to be, I guess key contributors to this team, because everybody on this list basically was a contributor last year. But who are 5 guys that you would like to have back?
Josh Woods and C.J. Moore, 2 all-important special teams pieces. I think they should pursue that. I think Isaiah Buggs, I think they should upgrade defensive tackle, but there's a rotational spot for him, and he's in that kind of same conversation as Kaminsky, a little quieter leader, but he was a kind of guy that those guys started rallying around there. I mean, I really remember guys rallying around him coming out of that Jaguars game, that Vikings game, where he had some nice moments. So that's somebody. And the name I didn't expect to have on here, but Will Harris. I mean, he is proven to be a much better slot corner nickel guy than he was a safety, and that's where this team has a couple of major holes. So I'd bring him back, let him compete for a job in camp, and then the last name, and it's one that I see gone, but I think I'd want to have him back, and it's Evan Brown, just because what he can offer you as a backup center. He was a certain on, because I think he's earned himself some money, but he's definitely one that deserves to come back, or should come back if they can make it happen.
And then because those are great picks for a couple of great reasons there. And Evan Brown is such an interesting case, because it's like, man, how much money is he going to command? And is that a fit for this team? Moving forward, for a guy that can play a little guard, play a little center, and gives you a little bit of depth there on the offensive line that with big Halapoulivaati Vaitai out, we desperately needed. Who are 5 guys that you don't see returning? And the reason, obviously with 18 guys that are UFAs. We have 15 players here. We know they're not going to re-sign everybody. They got a new incoming draft class, and plus external free agents as well. So 5 guys that you see not returning to this team.
Amani is gone. I feel like that one. I just feel like both sides there need a fresh start. He had just a disastrous season, never won his job back, and lost a lot of money this year after last year's breakout, unfortunately for him. Austin Bryant, I don't see him coming back with kind of the way it's kind of going to the pass rusher, edge rusher, defensive end room with Charles Harris and Romeo Farah, question marks on their contracts. I don't see Austin Bryant coming back. I've got Justin Jackson there. I just think Yeah, they're a little thin at running back, but I just he's somebody that could be able to find another home and find a home before training camp this time around. I really think that would benefit him. And then Chris Board, he came to Detroit looking for a linebacker job. He ended up being the all-important special teams piece that we kind of thought he was going to be. But it's easy to see him looking for a spot, and I don't think Mike Hughes will come back. As much as Dan Campbell loved playing Hughes over Okuda at the end of the season, I don't think he'll be back. I just think that they need to upgrade inside, outside cornerbacks for sure. And he's kind of in that Chris Board category, probably looking for a more meaty role.
Wow, man, I didn't expect Hughes. The other ones, I was like, okay, all right, yeah. I felt bad for Manny Oruwariye because I really thought coming off of 2021, like I just didn't want to. I didn't want to have one bad year, crush him. But you're right. A new start, some new scenery could be good for both sides. Austin Bryant, yes. But man, I was really hoping that Mike Hughes was going to make that our arbitrary list here. And obviously, for all of the fans, you could share with us who you desperately want to keep on this team. But it is a very interesting situation where it feels like we have some tough questions to get answered, and I think that in itself is a luxury.
No, absolutely, and it's at the point of the rebuild where you are going to have more of these tough decisions on guys you like, guys they like, guys that did their job to their liking. But it's just like at some point you've got to upgrade the talent, and that's kind of where Mike Hughes falls for me. I mean, there's some things that he was solid in the slot. He struggled in the slot. Excuse me. He showed something on the outside, and he does have some talent. He's got some skill. He's a veteran guy, but I just think kind of like with the Albert Pleasant firing, like there's got to be some changes in that secondary. And I just think that's a spot where you need to upgrade the talent, and those are going to be some of the tough decisions here as this rebuild hits into another level as you're competing for division titles.
He is Benjamin Raven. Find him on Twitter at Benjamin S. Raven. Read his work on MLive. Benjamin, my friend, thank you so much for your time as always, partner. We greatly appreciate it. It's always wonderful to see you inside Ford Fields. Everybody's hustling and bustling, trying to get from point A to point B, from press row down to the locker room, or running, trying to get in the buffet line. You got to block out, get your elbows wide. Make sure you get a plate there, man. It's great. Let's touch base soon as we get closer to draft time.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
5 you can't live without, 5 you want to have, and 5 you see going. I thought those answers were pretty good. And, of course, there's 18 undrafted free agents. The reason we did 5, 5, and 5 is because with the new draft class, that, a couple of these guys are going to be gone regardless, and then you just kind of got to figure out on your priority list, and one of those guys is going to be DJ Chark. He played on a 1-year, $10 million prove-it deal. What does that mean for him moving forward, being one of the big play creators in the NFL this season? Was his overall production worth $10 million a year? I've seen 3 at 30, kind of floating around a little bit. I don't know. Might be a little expensive for my blood, but we'll have to wait and see what general manager Brad Holmes wants to do.